In the lexicon of human language, few phrases carry the weight of finality quite like dead as a dodo. For over 3 centuries, this flightless bird from the island of Mauritius has served as the global mascot for extinction. It is the icon of obsolescence, the poster child for evolutionary failure. When we picture the dodo, we do not imagine a majestic creature. We imagine the character from Alice in Wonderland or Ice Age, a fat, clumsy, bulbous bird, waddling foolishly toward its own demise, too stupid to run from the hungry sailors who landed on its shores. We have turned a biological tragedy into a punchline, but the narrative is shifting. We are currently living through a dawn of biotechnology that was once the exclusive domain of science fiction. A company named Colossal Biosciences, backed by millions of dollars in funding and some of the brightest minds in genetics, has announced a project that sounds like a miracle. They intend to bring the dodo back to life. They promise that soon, the forests of Mauritius will once again hear the call of this lost icon. To the casual observer, this sounds like the ultimate act of redemption. It is humanity using its godlike mastery over nature to undo one of its original sins. It is a second chance. However, the headlines mask a far more complex and unsettling reality. The creature that will eventually step out of a laboratory and into the mud will not be a dodo. It cannot be a dodo. What we are building is something else entirely, a biological proxy that looks like a ghost, but possesses the DNA of a pigeon. This is not a story about the resurrection of a lost soul. It is a story about human guilt, technological arrogance, and the uncomfortable truth that some things, once broken, can never be truly fixed. To understand the magnitude of what we are about to do, we must first understand what we destroyed. To understand the tragedy of the dodo, we must first strip away the propaganda of its stupidity. The dodo was not a mistake of nature. It was a masterpiece of adaptation. Millions of years ago, a flock of pigeons, likely blown off course by a storm, landed on a small volcanic island in the Indian Ocean known as Mauritius. This island was a paradise. It was lush, rich in fruit and nuts, and crucially, it was entirely devoid of mammals. There were no tigers, no wolves, no rats, and no humans. In this isolated Eden, the pressure to flee vanished. Flight is an energetically expensive luxury. It requires massive chest muscles and hollow bones. When the ground is safe and food is abundant, evolution tends to favor size and stability over aerial agility. Over thousands of generations, those wayward pigeons underwent a phenomenon known as island gigantism. They grew larger. Their wings, no longer needed for escape, atrophied into small, vestigial remnants. Their legs became stout and powerful, capable of trekking across the volcanic terrain. The bird that emerged, Rhapis cucullatus, was perfectly designed for its specific world. It was not fat, it was robust. It stood 3 feet tall and weighed up to 40 pounds. Its most striking feature was its beak. Far from the comical hooked nose seen in cartoons, the dodo possessed a massive, reinforced bill. Skeletal analysis suggests this beak was capable of delivering a bite powerful enough to crack open the rock-hard seeds of the island's palm trees. It was a formidable tool for foraging. Furthermore, the dodo was not unintelligent. It belonged to the Columbidae family, the same family as pigeons and doves. While pigeons are often dismissed as rats with wings in modern cities, they are actually highly intelligent birds, capable of passing the mirror test for self-recognition and possessing excellent navigational memories. There is no biological reason to assume the dodo was stupid. It was simply naive. It had evolved in a world without predators. It had never known fear, because it had never needed to know fear. When the first Dutch sailors stepped onto the sands of Mauritius in 1598, the dodos did not run because their genetic code contained no instinct that identified a bipedal ape as a threat. They walked up to the sailors with curiosity. We mistook that curiosity for stupidity, and we signed their death warrant. The extinction of the dodo is often simplified into a story of hungry sailors hunting the birds to the last individual. While hunting played a role, the true engine of their destruction was an ecological collapse triggered by human arrival. When the Dutch ships arrived, they did not come alone. They brought with them a cargo of biological chaos: rats, pigs, monkeys, and dogs. These were the true agents of the apocalypse. The dodo, having evolved without ground predators, laid its single, precious egg directly on the forest floor. For millions of years, this was a safe strategy. But against a rat or a pig, it was a disaster. The invasive species swept through the island like a plague. The pigs dug up the nests and crushed the eggs. The monkeys raided the forest floor. The rats consumed the young. The dodo population was not just harvested, it was dismantled from the bottom up. Their reproductive cycle was shattered. The speed of their disappearance is terrifying. From the first recorded contact in 1598 to the generally accepted date of extinction in 1662, less than 70 years passed. In a single human lifetime, a species that had taken millions of years to evolve was wiped from the face of the earth. The realization of what had happened did not occur immediately. In the 17th century, the concept of extinction was not widely understood. Many believed that all species created by God were eternal. It was not until more than a century later that naturalists realized the dodo was truly gone. It became the first species whose extinction was definitively linked to human activity. It stands as the original sin of the Anthropocene, the moment humanity realized that our presence alone could burn a hole in the web of life that could never be mended. Now, nearly 400 years later, we are attempting to reverse that sin. The project is spearheaded by Colossal Biosciences, a company that has also garnered headlines for its plans to resurrect the woolly mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger. But bringing back a bird presents a unique set of challenges that makes it fundamentally different from cloning a mammal. With a mammal like a sheep or a dog, scientists can use a process called somatic cell nuclear transfer. This is how Dolly the sheep was created. You take a living egg cell, remove its nucleus, and replace it with the nucleus of a cell from the animal you want to clone. You then implant that egg into a surrogate mother. This is impossible with the dodo. We have no living dodo cells. We have no dodo eggs. All we have are fragments of DNA scraped from dusty museum specimens, old bones, and preserved tissue. These fragments are like a library of books that has been shredded. The information is there, but it is torn apart and incomplete. To reconstruct the dodo, scientists must first sequence its entire genome. They have largely succeeded in this, piecing together the genetic code from ancient samples. But a digital code is not a living animal. To turn that code into flesh and blood, they need a blueprint. Enter the Nicobar pigeon. This stunning bird, found in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, is the closest living relative of the dodo. It is the canvas upon which the dodo will be painted. Scientists are comparing the genome of the dodo with the genome of the Nicobar pigeon to identify the specific genetic differences. Which genes made the dodo huge? Which genes took away its flight? Which genes shaped its massive beak? Once these key differences are identified, the plan is to use CRISPR-Cas9, a revolutionary gene editing tool that acts like a pair of molecular scissors. Scientists will take the primordial germ cells of a Nicobar pigeon, the cells that eventually become sperm and eggs, and edit them. They will snip out the pigeon bits of DNA and paste in the dodo bits. These edited cells will then be implanted into a sterile surrogate host chicken or pigeon. When this host lays an egg and hatches a chick, that chick will still be a pigeon. But when that chick grows up and mates, the sperm or eggs it produces will carry the edited DNA. Its offspring will be the first generation of the resurrected dodo. This is where the wonder of science crashes into the hard wall of reality. The creature that cracks its way out of that shell will be a marvel of genetic engineering. It will have the grey feathers, the stout legs, and the hooked beak of a dodo. To the naked eye, it will be Rafus cucullatus reborn. But it will not be a dodo. Genetically, it will be a chimera. It will be a Nicobar pigeon that has been extensively modified to express dodo-like physical traits. Its DNA will be a patchwork quilt of ancient code and modern scaffolding. It is a proxy, a biological approximation. More importantly, a species is not defined solely by its DNA. A species is also defined by its behavior, its culture, and its interaction with the environment. In the wild, dodo chicks would have been raised by dodo parents. They would have learned how to forage, how to communicate, and how to navigate the social hierarchy of their flock from their elders. The first resurrected dodo will have no parents. It will be hatched in an incubator or under a confused surrogate chicken. It will have no one to teach it how to be a dodo. It will have the vocal cords of a dodo, but it will not know the songs. It will have the brain of a dodo, but it will not know the instincts. We are creating a biological orphan. It will be a solitary actor on an empty stage, a creature that looks like a ghost but lacks the spirit of the original. It is a Frankenstein bird, stitched together not from body parts but from data, thrust into a world it does not understand. It raises a profound philosophical question. Is a dodo truly a dodo if it acts like a pigeon and thinks like a chicken? Let us assume for a moment that the genetic wizardry works. Let us assume we create a flock of these dodo proxies. The stated goal of Colossal Biosciences is not just to keep them in a zoo, but to rewild them, to return them to their ancestral home in Mauritius. This is where the dream turns into a logistical nightmare. The Mauritius of 2025 is not the Mauritius of 1598. The paradise that created the dodo no longer exists. The island is now heavily populated by humans. The forests have been decimated for sugarcane plantations and tourism infrastructure. More critically, the invasive predators that drove the dodo to extinction, the rats, the pigs, the monkeys, the feral cats, are still there. They have not left. Ecologists argue that reintroducing a flightless, ground-nesting bird into an ecosystem teeming with ground-based predators is not conservation. It is cruelty. Unless Mauritius can be completely scrubbed of these invasive species, a task that is practically impossible, the new dodos will face the exact same fate as their ancestors. They will be eaten. Furthermore, the ecosystem relies on symbiotic relationships that may have been broken. There was a long-standing hypothesis about the dodo tree, Sideroxylon grandiflorum, which was thought to require the dodo's digestive tract to germinate its seeds. While this theory has been debated and largely debunked, it highlights a valid point. The dodo was a gardener of the forest. It spread seeds and shaped the vegetation. We do not know if the ecosystem can still support a mega herbivore like the dodo, or if the dodo can survive on the plants that currently remain. We are building a character for a play that has been cancelled. We are creating a key for a lock that has been changed. Why then are we doing this? If the result is a hybrid proxy and the environment is hostile, what is the point? Proponents argue that the technology developed to bring back the dodo will have massive spillover benefits for conservation. The tools used to edit the genome of the dodo could be used to rescue living birds that are on the brink of extinction. We could edit the genes of endangered birds to make them resistant to avian malaria or to help them adapt to a warming climate. The dodo is the moonshot, the flashy, impossible goal that drives the development of practical technologies that could save the rest of the planet. There is validity to this, but there is also vanity. The resurrection of the dodo is driven by a specifically human brand of guilt. We broke it. We want to fix it. We want to prove that our power to create is greater than our power to destroy. We want to wash the blood off our hands with the waters of biotechnology. But we must look at the truth with open eyes. The dodo is gone. The specific combination of evolution, history, and environment that created that magnificent naive bird has vanished into the ether. What is coming back is a testament to human ingenuity, a living monument to our regret. When the first neo-dodo takes its first breath, it will be a moment of awe. It will be a triumph of science. But as we watch it waddle across the floor of a sterile laboratory, miles away from the lost paradise of Mauritius, we should feel not just pride, but a deep, resonating sadness. We can edit the genome, we can assemble the bones, and we can wrap them in feathers. But we cannot engineer the soul of a species. We can bring back the singer, but we have forgotten the song. The return of the dodo is a warning disguised as a miracle. We may have the power to resurrect the dead, but we do not have the power to undo the past. The ghost is returning, but it is haunting us, not joining us.